Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we are going to do a mock Dynasty first-year player draft tonight. I've got Chris Welsh, I've got Chris Clegg, I've got Eric Cross. You know those guys. We're going to get right into this. Welsh is on the clock, first pick, and we'll get through as many picks as we can. Welsh, go for it.
Oh, it's a little bit different. We all did this experiment, mid-year, right after the draft. This looks a little bit different with the first pick. I don't know if it's unanimous, but I got to go with Roki Sasaki. He doesn't have a team, whether it's the Dodgers or Padres, it doesn't matter. It's a super young, controllable pitcher going straight to the majors. Maybe come into the league with one of the best splitters off the top, triple digits on the fastball. Little bit of arm worries. Cross, you were with me on an episode that's going to air next week, and I talked about if you were to see Sasaki go down with an injury, maybe, and he was out for 2 years, maybe I'd bump him below Painter based on proximity and stuff. But at the same point, like, it just doesn't go down too much. So I think Roki Sasaki is kind of the clear-cut guy here. He's going to most likely go straight to the majors, have a big major impact. It kind of stinks doing pitchers here, but there was already a lack of consensus with the number 1, number 2 overall pick. It's kind of adjusted around. So give me Roki Sasaki with the first pick.
Definitely a chalk pick. I think we would all done the same thing.
Yep.
Clegg, you are up in the 2 hole. This is where it starts to get interesting. Sasaki layup pick at 1.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. I think you can go several ways in the 2 spot, but I've had Travis Bazzana there all offseason. We'll hold steady with him at 2. Just believe in the combo of skills. And it's interesting. Like, it feels like that people have already begun to fade Bazzana. Like, it's kind of weird to watch that happening because he had a solid debut. I mean, he wasn't utterly dominant, but we are talking about a player that just does a lot of things extremely well. The hit tool is certainly plus. He's got a great approach, one of the best approaches in the draft class. And he's right there with approach-wise with probably one of the next couple names that will get called, but the power is there too. It took a big jump for Bazzana last year. I mean, he put up a 9th percentile exit velocity of 109 in college, which with a metal bat, that's still high end. Certainly see it dip down with wood, but I believe in the power. I believe in the hit tool. The contact skills are there for sure. I think that, he's going to be a high OBP type second baseman with big power. So, if I have the 2 pick, I'm happy to take Bazzana.
Yeah, I think that's not a surprise. I'm up at number 3, and I will take Nick Kurtz, who I'm slightly ahead of Bazzana. I just think he's just slightly better at the hit and the power part of things, and I just like the first base aspect of it too, and I think he might have just a slightly higher ceiling than Bazzana. I am a little worried about Nick Kurtz holding up over 162 game season. He's dealt with lower body injuries. He's a massive dude, but I just think finding a first baseman that is sort of a guy you can roll with for the next decade potentially is so much harder than finding the same thing at middle infield or outfield. So I honestly don't trust really anyone in this class, but I just think Kurtz, injury issues aside, is the safest stick in the class.
So he's your number 1 if Roki wasn't there.
Yeah, but
you have him over Bazzana.
I just absolutely hate picking second after Roki's gone. I get you. I don't feel good about this class, but anyways, over to Cross for the turn, pick 4 and pick 5.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot. I don't like any. I'd probably rather trade down and accumulate picks this year, to be honest with you. But 4-5 here. I'll start out with JJ Wetherholt, who I have as my personal number 3. And I love the power speed blend here. I hit the ball really hard. After the draft, about 55%. Granted, it was a small sample size in single A, but might have the highest upside. For any hitter we've talked about so far. I mean, we've talked to a few hitters, but obviously had some injury issues there. That's kind of like the detractor right now. But it's a really good blend of hit, power, and speed. I mean, and it gets a plus hit tool. He had more walks and strikeouts after the draft. Contact rate was above 80%. Again, small sample size, but I think he's plus hit. I mean, at least around above average, maybe even plus power and above average speed as well. And I think he probably ends up over at second base with Mason Wynn there long term. Hasn't really made that move yet, so maybe ends up over at third. Who knows? But I love the power speed blends. Hopefully he can stay healthy because I think he could be a very well-rounded and impactful offensive bat here. So I'll take him at 4. 5. I mean, I'll take Charlie Condon here. I know he's kind of like the really tough one to rank and value now because everyone was so high on him, myself included, before the draft. And then, after the draft and was it 27, 28 games, he was really, really bad. So it's kind of hard to, put a lot of weight under that though, because such a great collegiate career at Georgia. I mean, he's one of the, going back to draft time, he was kind of like one of the best draft process we've had in the last several years in terms of just, with the bat at least. So, and I don't think that was all a fluke. And I'm not putting a ton of weight. Yeah, it's a little concerning, the debut, but if I can get him a little bit of a discount here, I mean, he was like kind of like the unquestioned, or not unquestioned, but most people had him at number 1. I think he went number 1 when we did this last time. Now he's going down to, 4 or 5, even lower in some. I'll take that discount and bank on him, figuring it out again. So Condon at 5 and Wetherholt at 4.
Does anyone I've really kind of jumped off of Condon just because I said this sort of before any of these guys played in games, but I just felt like the college hitting environment was just so crazy that whatever these guys did in their pro debut, I was going to weigh more heavily than what they did in college, just because of the balls, the bats, the potential stealing signs at home parks and stuff like that.
I like that you just said it openly. Everyone's so weird about like not saying it. Like that's 100% what everyone was talking about, that like there was sign stealing and like a bunch of that shenanigans going on in the SEC. Sorry, James.
But am I the only one who's like really jumped on Condon, or is
how far off? Like give us an example. Like how far off?
He's outside my top 10.
I'm close. Like he's hovering right now. He's outside my top 5 or 6. There is an argument for some of the guys that are out there that I might push him to 9. I don't think he's going to fall outside of the top 10, because one of the things with the pro debut, Clay, you and I were kind of talking about this when we were also poking at the SEC stuff. There also was an injury. Like he did the bridge league and he was doing instructs out here, but he had an injury that was kind of staggering along. So that just kind of held everything back. So from like a pure ups standpoint, it's funny that you say that, because you might have these battles of like, do I want Charlie Condon in this elite power college bat versus a couple high school really high upside players? But like how excited is everybody about, I mean, Konnor Griffin's maybe a different discussion, might be being talked about really quick, or Bryce Rainer, and then even comparing to like how people are like fading Walker Jenkins and stuff. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting combo. I think he can fall out of the top 10 is what I would agree. I have fallen out a little bit, but I'm not quite in your range of outside the top 10. I'm getting close.
Yeah, I'm 6th, but I have him in a tier that goes down to 12. So yeah, I like the tiered approach a little better here, just given the draft class. So yeah, I think that you go with anybody in that tier range from 5 down. Like I've got Sasaki in his own tier. I've got Bazzana, Wetherholt, and Kurtz in their own tier. And then after that, it's kind of a big glob with a lot of risk on a lot of fronts. So
did you say you have Condon at 6?
Yes.
Yeah, I have. That's where I have him too.
And so that's a really good point, Chris. And just for first year player draft prep, like I really think tiers is the way to go. Like you should not be looking at rigid ranks and like, oh, I got to take this guy. I'm up at 6 now. I will take Jac Caglianone of the Royals. And the way, like, I mean, obviously we're not doing a 4-person dynasty league here, but I'm so low on this class that like I would be happy if Kurtz or Caglianone turned into a top 10 fantasy first baseman. I would consider that a win. And I think Caglianone is very, like, he is risky. I think most of these guys are risky. I just think like what he could become if everything works out is more appealing to me than what the rest of these guys could become if everything works out. 40 plus homer power, like in a best case scenario, I think that's there. He could also just go like the Torkelson route. Like that could definitely happen. But it's just kind of more of a testament to how little confidence I have in the rest of these guys. I'm just going to chase the upside with Jack. So that throws it back to Clegg at pick 7.
All right. Yeah. Again, big tier here. I'll take Christian Moore because he's probably the fastest to the majors of this group. I mean, Moore also plenty of risk, but plenty of power. He had 34 home runs last year, 55 extra base hits in 72 games. Pretty wild stuff in college. Again, he stepped into pro ball and he mashed, and then he struggled a little bit and he got hurt. But the power's off the charts here. It was the highest 9th percentile exit velocity in college baseball at 112. The average EV 96, also pretty impressive. He put up some good EVs with wood as well, which is a positive. Like, you like to see that translate, because again, you never know how that's going to translate. And it translated for the most part for Christian Moore. I think the Angels are just going to get aggressive and push him, and he's probably up in May or June, if we're being honest. And there's a chance that you get big power at second base. So I'll take the shot there, even though I think it's a very risky profile for a lot of reasons.
All right. Yeah, I think definitely fitting into this big tier. Over to Welsh. Now you get to actually make some exciting picks where we don't know where you're going.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
You're not happy, are you?
No, well, bang, bang. Like, you guys were so down on Jac. Like, in one of them we did, I was like, I might have a shot at Jac. And then Christian Moore. I know people, there's an interesting video. I'm just going to throw it out there with the pitcher that everybody gets very worked up about, that Christian Moore just went up against. It's a fascinating video to watch. You might want to watch it and see some of his hack and approach. Like, Christian Moore's a pretty impressive guy. I just want to throw that out there. And his take, his body, the power. I don't know if you saw it, Clay. You're smiling like you might have seen that video.
I knew exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I wanted Christian Moore here as soon as Jac went. So I really did. So yeah, back to your point, things do open up here. I will say, when we were talking about, like, there's tiers of like 6 to 12, we just ended a tier though. Like, I think Condon, I think Jac, I think Christian Moore, they're a tier that are then centered around the pitchers again. Someone in the chat was like, hey, is Sasaki the only pitcher that's gone? Yes, that's going to change here. I don't think I'm going to go back to back because I've got 2 picks here, even though we could presumably feel like these are like different teams. But if this were my team, I would not do back-to-back pitchers. So the first one I'm going to go with, and this has actually become a lot tougher for me, I'm going to take Chase Burns here. So this is the first non-Roki Sasaki pitcher going. I do think it's closer than I thought it was during draft time. I loved the combo pitches of Chase Burns. Big athletic whippy arm. I saw him in Reds camp. He was hanging around. I got to see his first pitching pro debut, though it didn't count because it was in like instructs. He was pretty wild, but you could see like that slider flying. You could see that fastball. You could see the offerings that are there. Hagen Smith, I wasn't as big on because he's kind of a more primary 2-pitch pitcher. It's one of the best debuts I've ever seen of a pitcher. I got to see, it wasn't his debut. I guess it was like his second outing he had done in the Bridge League. It was almost immaculate. I mean, everyone was swinging through everything, and these were younger-ish international prospects that were kind of floating out there with some of the new draftee guys for, God, I'm forgetting what team it was. I'm forgetting what team he went up against. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it was Texas or something. But Hagen Smith looked incredible. Fastball slider combo was absurd. He did throw like a couple changeups, and he had talked about wanting to work on that more. So all I'm getting is I think these two are really, really close. But I think the upside of Chase Burns is really there, even though the ballpark isn't. Offensively, there's a lot of support. I think the stuff, he's going to be a stuff plus guy. So I really love Chase Burns in this spot, especially getting him in the middle rounds. And then I'm going to go with kind of my 1B to Christian Moore. I'm going to go with Braden Montgomery. That's got to be my choice here. I got to flip over from losing Christian Moore here. Out of Texas A&M, traded from Boston over to the White Sox. 98.5. I won't give you the exact number, but college average EV, metal bats and stuff. Absurd. One of the highest. I think it was the highest of the college first rounders of average EV. 90th percentile EV was over 111. Max EV at 115. He had an over 30% barrel rate, which was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the hard hit is there, and the injury kind of took off some of the steam. Then being traded to the White Sox, I think, took off more of the steam. People are like, oh, the White Sox don't like him. Then what? No, this is a massive, massive impact, big power bat. Might be one of the sneakier guys because I don't know how you guys feel and what you would have done. I think there's a possibility in some other like consumer, like fun drafts people do. Braden Montgomery might fall out of the first round for people if they're not forgetting. Maybe you guys would have let it happen too, and I overreach. But Braden Montgomery, kind of the slam pick if Christian Moore wasn't there. So Chase Burns and Braden Montgomery. Clegg, do you agree? Would you have taken Braden? Like, let's say I had let him slip back.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I definitely was taking him. I think Braden Montgomery is a star in the making. I saw him at A&M this year, and he's so impressive in so many ways. So, I mean, the bat's stellar. His He has a cannon of an arm in the outfield. Everybody, I think, overstates the hit tool concerns. I don't see that. The data doesn't really suggest hit tool concerns to me. I mean, he ran the 85% end zone contact rate. Like, I think it's a plenty fine hit tool for the power and the athleticism he brings to the table. So, yeah, I'm so in on Braden Montgomery at the falling price for sure.
All right, well, get out of here, buddy. You took Christian Moore. I get Braden Montgomery.
Yeah.
I'm glad you agree, though.
You,
All right.
you guys are even now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
All right.
Clegg for pick number 10, just to set you up.
Yep. All right. So I am going with Konnor Griffin. It's a demographic that I'm not super comfortable with. And yeah, I think Griffin comes with risk, but I will say this offseason, he's completely transformed his body and his swing. I've put up a video comparing the side-by-sides from July to December. That man is jacked now. He put on 20 pounds of good weight, and he completely overhauled his swing that's geared much more for contact. We're already looking at good power. Griffin was one of the fastest runners in the class. I think he stole 90-some bases in high school last year, some stupid number like that. I have it down somewhere. But, yeah, 85 stolen bases. He had 9 home runs, and he had just 118 at-bats in his high school season because he walked so much. He struck out 6% of at-bats. The hit tool was the concern. Would his swing work against better pitching? And I certainly believe that it will, especially if you go and watch the swing path now. It's significantly better. I think Griffin's one of the best athletes in the class. The power's there. The speed's there. He's going to stick up the middle. He's going to play short or be in center field. So I'll bet on Griffin kind of taking off and being one of the better players in the class when all's said and done.
Yeah. I'm honestly surprised that he made it to number 10.
I thought about it.
I was starting to hope he was going to follow me at 12. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen.
I thought about it with the pitching. I thought about also if I wanted to play the market, play you guys. I think there might have been an opportunity. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong. Thought there might have been an opportunity if I would have taken both of them that maybe one of Hagen or Chase Burns would have come back to me. He was probably the only guy that I was giving really big consideration to because if I wanted to get him, I know I needed to take him right there because of some of the hype. But I do think Bryce Rainer is very, very close and might even be a bigger impact bat unless Konnor Griffin's changes really show out in like a dramatic way this year, which they might.
And now, I mean, do you guys agree? Like, is the difference between Griffin and Rainer that sort of like elite upside, like with Griffin's ability to steal 30 plus bases? Like, do you guys see a big gap in like the hit and the power tool between Rainer and Griffin at this moment?
I don't personally. I mean, I think the speed edge is Griffin. Got him back to back in my rankings, but I mean, I think that Griffin's got the speed edge, and I think the power is going to be closer than people think, especially, I mean, Griffin's body's dramatically changed. So that's notable. The hit tools, I think both have shown concerning marks, but we'll see how that plays out because it's so hard to know with preps.
I would slightly lean power to Rainer, hit tool to Rainer, speed probably more dramatically in Griffin's favor. But it's close. But I favor the offensive upside from the hit tool perspective a little bit more to Rainer.
All right. Well, I am up for pick number 11. Cam Smith is pretty high on my board, but I think I have a bigger like third tier than you guys. I put Kurtz and Bazzana in like a small second tier, and then I've got a tier from 4 to 13. And I've got Smith 5th. It's almost sort of, I think he's safe. I think there's upside if there are some swing changes, but I think even without the swing changes, he's going to be a doubles machine. He's going to hit plenty. And obviously the move to Houston is good for, a righty hitter like him who's working on getting to more power. The whole, like, is he blocked? I don't think, like, if Cam Smith develops as expected, I just don't see Isaac Paredes standing in his way whenever he's ready. So not worried about that. And I think he's kind of been getting better over the past 18 months or so, basically every step of the way. And obviously it's not necessarily going to be linear, but just in this class, I like the idea of a guy who's kind of starting to tap into something in Cam Smith. So that throws it over to Cross for a pair.
Yeah, I was debating Cam Smith here too. I was wanting to see who of these three would fall. So I'll go with another Smith, and I'll take Hagen Smith here with pick 12. I do like Burns a bit more. I know people were kind of back and forth, Burns for Smith. I do lean Burns overall, but I do like Hagen Smith a good amount as well. And I think he has, like one of the better 2-pitch, combos in the entire minor leagues right now with that fastball slider. I mean, just another, the White Sox love their lefties, fastball slider, low release slot, and Hagen Smith, another example of that. Still going to see, if the changeup can develop a little bit more, even if he just gets that to an average start offering, which it's almost there. I'm not against a terrible, changeup or anything like that, but didn't really use it a whole lot. So you got to imagine he does start using that a little bit more in the minor leagues. Command and control, not great, but not terrible either. But he's gonna be a guy that's gonna miss a ton of bats. Probably be a guy that could, be up a 30% K rate guy down the road, and someone that's probably gonna move quickly. I mean, I think he honestly could pitch in a major league bullpen, pretty soon or now, given that 2-pitch, combo, the fastball slider. But a little bit of further development with the changeup, maybe a little command refinement, and he's gonna be a really good arm. So I'll take Hagen Smith here at 12, and I'll go with the guy we just talked about, Bryce Rainer. I mean, don't really have a ton now. We already kind of covered him, but obviously not the athlete that Konnor Griffin is. I was really hoping Griffin was somehow going to fall to me at 12. Even I knew that was a long shot because there's a lot more upside there given Griffin's speed. But I do think there's plenty of power potential here with Bryce Rainer. I definitely give him the power advantage. Though that video of Griffin the other day being a lot bigger really has got me excited about his power upside as well. But Rainer could be a guy that's 25, 30 homer bat from the shortstop position. And there's some concerns with the hit tool, but we'll kind of see how that develops. But even if he's just like 50 hit, 60 power or something like that, I think this would be a really fun fantasy player. Don't think he's going to provide more than 5 to 10 steals, especially if he adds a little bit of bulk. He's already not the greatest fastest runner now. He has a little bit of bulk. Kind of wonder if that even ticks down a little bit further. But still love the bat, and think he's going to be kind of a middle of the order shortstop. So I will go Hagen Smith 12 and Bryce Rainer 13.
Very good. Well, I'm up here at pick 14, and I'm going to take the last guy in my big tier that I alluded to earlier, Carson Benge. The Mets took him 19th overall. Was a two-way player, but that I do kind of buy into the idea that there's a little bit of upside when a guy scraps going two-way, regardless of whichever direction he goes. And I think that the Mets are just a very well-run organization now. He can play multiple spots in the outfield. Like, I don't think Benji's a star, but I think he's a guy that's going to help kind of across the board in fantasy. And he's just really hit everywhere. Even when he was a two-way guy, like, he hit on the Cape. So I dig it. I think there's upside. I think there's floor. So it's not that exciting, but give me Carson Benge of the Mets over at 14. And that throws it to Clegg for pick 15.
This is where it pretty much, I think, breaks wide open. I would say this is the break point of the draft. There's a defined like top 14, 13 for me, and then it's like wide open. So
we can all go a lot of different directions.
Yeah. So that's what I'm debating. Like, if people are watching, they can probably guess where I'm going to go based on.
I know where you better go. You better do it, because if you screw me, I'm going to screw you here. You know exactly what we're talking about.
All right. I think we got each other. Yeah. So all right. I will leave your guy. I think. Well, and I will take Griffin Burkholder. It might be too high. I don't know. I've had him sitting in this range, in the 15 to 20 range, for a good while now. Burkholder, I know the Phillies had a mid-first round grade on him. Like, they loved the guy. They got him second round, gave him a huge overslot deal. The power speed combo is quite strong there. I mean, we're looking at a 70 grade runner that I believe has above average power at the present as a prep bat. And I think there's room to get to plus power. Like, this is the mold of like Roman Anthony. Like, when I saw Roman Anthony as a prep, like, this is the mold that I saw in him. And so that's why I've been so attracted to Burkholder throughout the whole cycle. And I just really believe in this profile. I'll bet here, like, just given the risk with every player, that I'll take my shot on the power speed combo that could really take off and wind up being a top prospect in baseball. So not saying that's the case with Burkholder. again, there's a million ways to go here looking at my list, but I'll leave Welsh's guy, who I have back-to-back, and I think I know where he's going to go.
I'd have been spiteful. I would
100%
been spiteful to you had you done it. Everybody in the world knows I'm taking Slade Caldwell.
So I've got him back-to-back. So.
I mean, no shocker here that I was going Slade Caldwell. So that's 100% going to be one of mine. And you've sold me more in Burkholder, by the way, as well. I mean, I got to tell you one thing you do when you go and you watch some video on Burkholder, you're like, good Lord. Like you want to talk about like specimen baseball players. He could grow into being a big dude with some big power. Caldwell has got some of that, but he's tiny from a short perspective, tiny for baseball perspective. He's like 5'9", maybe a little bit smaller, 5'8", 5'7", somewhere in there, but thicker dude, classic Diamondbacks mold of an outfielder. But there's so much I like about the potential hit tool. I don't know if you're ever going to have elite power, but I think you can have some of the same questions, obviously, people have had with Corbin Carroll. Mid 50s to 60s type of a hit tool, really good advanced approach, big bat speed. The guy can fly around. I think this is like if he hits at the top of a lineup, maybe he's going to be sacrificed on the RBIs. If the hit tool advances in a really good way, and all of a sudden he's a number 3 hitter, he's a absolute 5-tool potential guy. I think your low end is something along the lines, I say low, like the low end peak, it would be like a 15-30 type of guy, where like 10, 50, 30, like the middle line would be, he's a 15 homer, 30, 35 stolen base guy, higher batting average, just really good bat speed, great athlete, great pick. Diamondbacks know how to mold these guys. I mean, don't tell Alec Thomas that, but this is the type of work that they have. They love their left-handed outfielders. The other guy that I'm going to go with should probably also not be too big of a shock here, because I can't get cute anymore. This is less the time where we can get cute in drafts, and you got to start taking your guy. And that's why I would give a hat tip to Clegg here, that boards really do open up, and there's no consensus, especially in fantasy, because that's a confusing thing. You go to sites that rank these guys not based on fantasy, you're going to just see all different types of stuff. Why are all these pitchers still out here? I mean, Caminiti would be a great pick here, but in the dynasty streets, you're going to have to get close to investing. Because what pick are we at? Is this pick like 16?
17.
If you get to 15 and Braylon Payne hasn't gone yet, I think you're in a pretty good spot. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Braylon Payne, who I was super, super dicey, did not like on draft day. And then I got to see it in person in the Bridge League out here in Arizona. It was Braylon Payne's like debut game. I think, God, now I'm forgetting Burke. The first baseman, the Tennessee first baseman was out. Yeah, thank you. He was out here. Prince Fielder's kid. It was all these guys on the Royals where Jack was playing, and you had all these guys playing. And guess what? Braylon Payne shined. He was the biggest shining star of all of these guys. I think there's big major power potential questions moving forward with him, because I don't want to call it quite slap hitty, but it's an across the body type of swing. But what it has done is it's allowed him a lot of zone control. So the guy can hit some doubles. I think he hit a homer maybe it was in pro ball. I'm just forgetting where it was now. But that across the body type of contact is going to lead to a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, but he's fast as lightning, and he gets on base, and he wants to run every single time he's on base. I would not be shocked if there's a pro season where Braylon Payne has 50 stolen bases. Why would that not happen? Because he's a garbage hitter. If that happens, like that would be the reason why he doesn't steal 50 bases in my mind, is if that bat regresses as he goes up, he's trying to sell out for more power, and that doesn't be a part of his game. And we know when you begin to get that level of selling out for power, sometimes you can sacrifice your average. If he can keep that average up, I think he's going to be in a really good spot where he's going to run high averages, big stolen bases. Where the other upside is, I'm not 100% sure, but it's a pretty good bet for Milwaukee and pretty good bet fantasy upside here. So this is a guy, there's no chance he was coming back to me on the swing here. So Braylon Payne and Slade Caldwell.
All right. Very good. Yeah, I mean, if you just get a leadoff hitter, like even if it's 10 homers, if Caldwell or Payne are leadoff hitters, I think that's a win at this point in the draft.
100%. Maybe he becomes like Starling Marte, goes up and down in those power departments, early years of Starling Marte, big stolen bases. I just love the batting average potential with Payne. So he's a really good bet, and probably early second round in 15-team roto dynasties is like, that's prime territory. Don't let it go too much further if, you want to chase some stolen bases.
All right, Clegg, pick 18.
Well, I would say we've done well, because my top 17 ranked or off the board. So, Welch, I had Caldwell and Payne next. So,
okay, nice. I'm right there.
Yeah. I think it gets even more interesting here. And you could go the college route. There feels a little safer. But I also think this is where I want to speculate on some upside. And that's why I'm going to take Josuar Gonzalez, who just signed today with the Giants. He's my top international player in the class. I think just the combo of skills here, and I'll put on the caveat on it, like there's no Leo DeVries in this international class. Like there's no player that's even remotely close to that caliber, in my opinion, unless we talk Roki Sasaki. But on the J15 side, I don't see anybody close with what I've seen in the data I've seen. Like, I just don't see it. But I do really like Josuar Gonzalez for at least an upside shot, and you're getting towards the 20 range. I think this is where I look to take the first international player not named Roki Sasaki, and that's Josuar De Jesus Gonzalez, who signed today, January 15th, with the Giants. Switch hitter, good power from both sides of the plate. He's a little bit of a shorter frame, but a strong frame at 5'11". Yeah, I think it's a pretty polished hit tool. I'll be curious to see how this shakes out because, again, this can go a million ways. You could have somebody like a DeVries that just takes off. Or, as we saw last year, only 2 of the top 10 highest signing bonuses on the J15 side were remotely decent. So most of the guys are pretty bad. So it could be bad, but I think that the upside here is worth the shot at pick 18.
Clegg, just quickly, like, what do you mentioned the signing bonus thing, and I've noticed that too. It's almost like the bust factor increases if a guy's been guaranteed a 7-figure bonus for over a year. But like, what do you look for specifically when you're trying to determine this is my top player in this year's J15 class, or this is a player I might steer away from even though the bonus is really high?
Yeah, I think that you can probably just throw bonuses out the window in a lot of cases. I mean, just go look at the history. You can look at the history of it, as I mentioned, and see the top guys. And the thing is, like, they agree to bonuses 2 to 3 years before today. And so you think about when you were 13 or 14 years old, how much did you change before you were 16, 17? So, like, that's like Jose Perdomo last year was the highest bonus, but his body changed so drastically before he signed, like he backed up so much. So it's tough. Like, you scrounge video, like, fortunately I've built a couple contacts to be able to talk to about some of these players, the people that have seen them, and get some video, get a little bit of data where it's available. And so I think it's extremely tough because it's inconsistent player to player. Like, you never know what you're getting at the end of the day. But, I'm just trying to watch video, trying to figure out, like, what are people that have seen these guys? How do they value them? And what do the little data points we can find actually mean when, those are available and somebody's been nice enough to give them to you? So, yeah, I think that just that combo is kind of how I've worked. I try to just flush bonuses pretty much out the window at this point. Like, I think was Elian Pena. He was the highest bonus, I think, this year. I've got him 6th on the international side, but yeah, I think just the combo of those things is kind of try out to piece it together. But there's no right answer because until they play games, it's so hard to know.
I would have done the same thing, by the way. I just want to point out that's what I almost did. Had Payne been off the table or Slade, I would have gone with Josuar paired with one of those guys. So just FYI.
Boom.
Well, Josuar is my top guy from the Latin America crop that signed today, but I will go with Ryan Waldschmidt, who has few things in common with Josuar DePaul, but Josuar De Jesus Gonzalez. But like Waldschmidt, I just think he had some really inopportune injuries when he was an amateur that prevented him from really rising up boards. And then there's also the fact he's really a fantasy over reality player, potential left fielder, potential DH. Despite being a good runner, just hasn't really shown a ton of chops in the outfield. But I think there's a lot of offensive upside with Waldschmidt, and I actually prefer him to Caldwell. I have him in the same tier, but like, I love both those guys on draft day, and I love JD Dix, and the Diamondbacks got all 3 of them. But I just think Waldschmidt is a really nice buy in FYPDs because of where he went in the actual draft, because I do think if we're just looking at fantasy relevant tools, he is a borderline top 15 guy to me.
Love it.
And then that throws it to Cross for pick 20 and 21.
All right, yeah, you literally can go a million different ways here, and this is a massive 12, 13 player tier for me. I guess I'll go. These guys are both kind of risky, but both have the upside as well. I'll go with Seaver King here at pick pick 20 out of Wake Forest. Went to the Nats with the 10th overall pick. I mean, there's some hit tool concerns, but there's a ton of bat speed. Raw power is there. He's a phenomenal athlete. Plus or even double plus runner. I mean, this is if he figures out the hit tool. I mean, this is a guy that could turn into maybe one of the better fantasy players in this entire draft class. I mean, get a little more risk than a lot of the guys we talked about, sure, but if the hit tool doesn't come along, he'll kind of maybe fizzle out a little bit. But at this point, I'd kind of bank on that upside and potential for 20, the 20, 30 plus is their upside there for power speed for Seaver King. So I will go with him at 20. And I mean, I go 5 different guys here. I guess I'll go Theo Gillen with Tampa Bay. I know people kind of soured on him, and he's really, really risky. But I like the all-around blend of skills here. I think he could be above average, kind of across the board offensively. But there's a lot more, again, a lot more risk than a lot of the other players we've talked about so far. But hey, if it works, Tampa Bay is, a great landing spot for him. Maybe I'd feel a little bit differently if he landed in a different organization, but lands in a good spot there. Got a good blend of tools. He's an above average runner, solid field to hit, good power potential too. So I guess I'll go with Theo Gillen here after Seaver King with 20 and 21.
All right. Well, I just realized I've taken only college hitters so far.
Mix it up, baby.
I don't love it. And I will be able to switch it up here, and I will take Kellon Lindsey of the Dodgers at pick 22. Potential slap hitter, but I think there's a chance for a bit more. He was a really good football prospect as well. Big time arm, obviously, right up there with Payne as one of the fastest guys that we're going to talk about today. The Dodgers probably get too much credit as a developmental org, especially on the hitting side. They're really good at identifying talent, I think, but they don't have the greatest record with this type of prospect, but I just think the tools are there for fantasy. Like if you squint and you squint really, really hard, there's Trey Turner potential with Kellon Lindsey. So I'm just going to roll the dice there, and we'll throw it over to Clegg for pick 23.
All right, let's have a little fun and go the prep pitching route and go with Ryan Sloan, who I think is arguably has a chance to be the best pitcher in this draft class. Obviously, you got Burns and Smith at the top. You take out Roki, and Ryan Sloan's got all the talent in the world and is almost as polished as they come for a prep arm. And he's tall and projectable, 6'4", 225, but still has some room to add to that frame. Fastball already sits mid-90s, touching 98. It's a strong carrying pitch, good IVB, low effort delivery, easy velocity. The changeup, heavy fade in the mid to upper 80s. It's average 13 to 15 inches of fade last year. Plays well off the fastball. I think his slider extremely well because the separation it gets from the changeup. He was up to 18 inches of sweep on the slider, averaging closer to 15. So pretty strong horizontal separation between the slider and the changeup. There's a lot of value. I think the command is pretty good for a prep arm as well. And I think there's a couple you could argue here with Sloan and Caminiti. I was at Caminiti's pro debut, which was awesome to watch. But I think Sloan's upside is just a little higher, and he's a little bit more polished at this point. So that's why I lean that way.
I was shocked. When you said prep pitcher, I was like, oh yeah, people see my face. And then you said Ryan Sloan. I was like, whoa, no Caminiti. I like Sloan. I actually talked with Sloan. Him and Jurrangelo were here during the end of, I guess it was a bridge league that was going on, a bridge league game that was happening, and they're out here, and Sloan's a big bodied guy. You look at him and you're like, oh, that's a future big power pitcher. So I like Sloan, but I would have taken Caminiti over, but I like that good surprise for sure.
Well, Welsh, you get to show us who you would have taken here with a pair of picks at 24 and 25.
Okay, good. So I was curious if we're going to keep swinging around, because now, not that I guess it would have like massively dictated. Well, actually, it does change it like a tiny bit, because I was going to take Caminiti. That was going to be.
No, we are. I think I was almost too good at speeding us along here. So I think we can get at least another round in. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I love that. No, I was saying I was like, oh, I'm going to take one guy, and then it was going to be Caminiti, or I was going to take the other. So I'm down to take 2 picks. This first one's going to be easy. This is going to be PJ Morlando. I talked about him on the tool shed. I'm really into PJ Morlando right now. Big power, big lefty bat, 6'3", 200, prototype type of body, big, incredible bat speed. He's had some in-game translation issues of like where the power has gone. I think his first pro debut hit was like a triple or something though. But, this is one of the better prep offensive bats if the contact rates hold. That's going to be the big question. The power is not in question. This could be a 35-plus home run bat when it all matures. It'll be where the overall development goes. This is the type of guy in these rounds I really want to bet on. And, the Marlins bet on him where they drafted him too. I think there was a level of surprise, but that there's so much offensive upside and offensive excitement that PJ Morlando was an easy pick. And frankly, had Caminiti been there, I would have taken Morlando first just to make sure he was off the board. I was hoping to get both of them. I am going to
Caminiti is there.
Oh yeah, Caminiti. Duh. I talked so much. I'm so stupid. I kept talking about Sloan and Caminiti. I am taking Caminiti. That's 100% what I'm doing. Thank you for doing that. I got it in my head.
But now you get to give him a smaller bonus because you took him after Morlando.
I 100%. Well, and he's also not the first prep pitcher either. So stupid Ryan Sloan went and taking that spot away from him. But yeah, no, I love Caminiti. He's a local guy out here, Saguaro High School out here in Arizona where I'm at. The conversation about like, is this 3 or is this going to be 4 pitches overall is like a big thing. Big power fastball, big power slider, curveball looks good. Changeup is going to be developed even more. Great sense of command, great athlete too. Just a big power bodied lefty that is mature, I think beyond his ages that, I was excited that, he committed into the draft. Sometimes that's a big question. It's funny. The Dream Series is coming up. Only reason this is in my head. The Dream Series is in 2 days when we're recording this. And at the Dream Series, I had interviewed, it was my first interview on my show ever, Kumar Rocker. And Kumar Rocker looked like he was going to go into the draft. And sure enough, he didn't. And he went back on the in the college side. And everybody knows the story there. But there's always that worry with Caminiti. But I think the upside in play, like Sloan actually might have maybe a little bit of a better floor and there might be some peak upside stuff. But I think at the end of the day, like Caminiti is the best package of a prep pitcher that I want to bet on here. So I've taken 3 pitchers. I guess I'm the pitching guy, which is crazy, but yes, thank you. My insanity, Caminiti and PJ Morlando, easy picks for me here.
Yeah. You are the pitching guy. And
when did that happen?
All right, Clegg, I know you're prepared to keep it rolling here. Pick 26. The world is yours.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I may go another pitcher, even though, I don't love the generic strategy of taking too many pitchers, but I think it's the best value on the board right now, and that's Trey Yesavage, a pitcher out of ECU. He landed in Toronto, and I know we all know how pitchers in Toronto have gone the last several years. So that's obviously in the back of everybody's mind. But I do think that creates a decent buying opportunity on Trey Yesavage because, I think he's right there with talent level of really any arm outside of Roki. He had a couple of injury things. He had a collapsed lung during the college season, which is crazy. And that certainly affected him. It's kind of the kitchen sink approach with him, but he starts with a fastball that gets on you quick. It's heavy ride. It's a high release height, like 6'8" release height, kind of absurd. So way over the top, ton of IVB coming at you. Gets pretty good horizontal movement on the fastball, topping at 97 last year. But he throws a slider, he throws a splitter, throws a change, and a curve. A slider being the most used of the secondaries. I think that at this point, some of those injury things are behind him. We know the collapsed lung is behind him. Just pitching in the postseason. I think the talent level's here, and we know ECU has done very well in the past with arms, Gavin Williams being one. There's been quite a few examples of good arms that have come out of there. I think that you look at the Toronto issues with pitchers, I don't necessarily think that's a org thing per se. I think that that's just a pitcher thing. And it's just, they've had all their top guys happen to go down that they've drafted. So yeah, I think Yesavage is certainly a good value here. And I think he's got a pretty high floor to go with a solid ceiling.
Yeah. It's almost like they took enough prep arms that they steered directly into the exact opposite of that and went with a kitchen sink college arm.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I wouldn't blame Toronto. I just would blame the type of prospect that they were drafting. Yeah. I mean, those guys are really risky.
Yep.
So that gives it to me, pick 27. I will take my first pitcher, and I will take Jurrangelo Cijnte. I guess technically a both-handed pitcher, but much better as a righty pitcher for the Mariners. And I honestly was not really in on him that much at all, but the landing spot is really important to me, especially with pitchers. And Seattle is probably the best landing spot you could have. Not even really developmentally, but just the park. Like it turns SP4s into SP3s and SP3s into SP2s. Like it's just it's where you want to be. And I'm just hoping that he's basically a mid-rotation starter, and I'll feel great about the pick. Don't think he's got the highest ceiling, but like you don't really know. I mean, the Mariners are pretty good, so a little bit of upside there too. But I thought he was the safest arm available. So Jurrangelo Cijnte of the Mariners for me at pick 27, and that throws it back to Cross for. I think we got time for another round here. So Cross, 2 more for you.
2 more, okay. I wasn't sure if we were going 1 or 2 here. So my first one. I'll go with the guy that I know I'm higher on the most. I'm going to go Vance Honeycutt. I went to the Baltimore Orioles out of the University of North Carolina. I love North Carolina, so watched a lot of Honeycutt. And, man, like he is a very talented baseball player. It's like kind of does so many things well, but with one glaring red flag. I mean, it's making contact. I mean, this guy there's a swing and miss issue. There's just, making contact in general issue, which he did not help his case after the draft. He did, even probably worsened his case with his debut. Again, small sample size, but another guy that if the hit tool, just even fringe average hit tool, which I think is possible, he could, even if he's a 250 hitter long term, like he does so many things well. And, especially, defense, strong arm, that's going to help carry him up, towards the major leagues, above average to plus raw power. He's a plus or better runner. He's a phenomenal athlete. So does so many things well. And again, a great landing spot. He was kind of one where, I thought my valuation of him and my ranking of him would really be influenced by where he landed, just because of the type of prospect that he is. And landing in Baltimore, that was a phenomenal landing spot. Makes me feel a little better about targeting him. And he's one that I think you can get for, a pretty decent, value price point in FYPDs right now. And at this point, it's like the upside I think is worth taking a gamble on if you're getting him in the 20s, or even, heck, he might even fall into the 30s. And if you get him in that range, I love it. So I will go Vance Honeycutt. What's that pick? Where are we at now? 28, I believe we are. So, man, we got more picks in than we thought we were going to here. So I got 1 more here.
It's almost like you guys have done FYPD mocks before.
Yeah, maybe a few of them over the last few years, but I think I might go with. Oh man, I could go a few different ways here. Let's go with James Tibbs. He's boring. I mean, he is a boring, maybe the most boring guy on this list, but he's got a really good approach at the plate. I mean, he's gonna be one of those guys that I think is always underrated because he doesn't bring like massive power. He's not much of a runner at all. He's probably never going to provide more than a few steals here and there. But this is a really solid bat. So, it's really limited to corner, outfield, first base, type of role long term. Doesn't really move overly well. So I kind of wonder if he even kind of sticks in the outfield, to be honest with you. But solid blend of contact, approach, power. Maybe like a 265, 270, 275 range hitter. 20, 25 home runs. Probably not 30 plus or anything like that. But I think he's just a solid, mature hitter that'll probably be one of the quicker risers for bats in this class to get to the major leagues. And so not really the sexiest way to end it for me, but I'll go James Tibbs at 29.
Yeah, James Tibbs, definitely not sexy, but I don't know if sexy is available at this point in the draft. I will take Levi Sterling of the Pirates at pick 30. Just like the definition of a projectable pitching prospect. 6'5", was a 2A guy in high school, and doesn't even it's just kind of, you can just really dream on the pitches. And I love what the Pirates have done lately. They're in the circle of trust for me. So yeah, I think Sterling is my third favorite prep arm in the class after Caminiti and Sloan. So fine with taking him here in the 30s. And that'll send it over to Clegg for one more at pick 31.
Yeah, I actually like this range a little bit, just given some prep upside you can kind of dream on. It may completely flop, but there's certainly the chances that you could hit on somebody here. And, I'll take that shot with Tyson Lewis of the Reds, another power speed type that I really like. Incredible athlete. He's 6'2", 195, putting up exit velocities in high school up to 108. Ran a 6'4", 60-yard dash, so it's plus or better speed. Extremely hard worker. Made some swing tweaks over the last year that's really paid off. Just much more natural looking swing. So yeah, I think that if the hit tool pans, then Tyson Lewis is going to be a really fun player that has a lot of upside to dream on. And this Reds org, and it's an incredible body at 6'2" and plenty of athleticism. So, the prep bats around here, I like taking a shot on Tyson Lewis.
I almost went with Tyson Lewis. I was debating him with Tibbs there in my last pick.
Should have gotten Lewis.
Probably should have.
I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. Welsh, you have the last pick, and then I'll throw it around the horn, and we can talk about the class briefly before we sign off.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of Tyson Lewis, by the way. He was the crew of those Reds guys that were out here during the Bridge League. I love Tyson Lewis. I think there's a lot of different directions I could go. I think just letting everybody know, if I had back-to-back picks here, there are two players I would take. JD Dix would be one of them, but I'm going to go with the other on the international side. I'm going to go with Elian Pena, as seen as one of the top hitting. You said you have got him at 6. I think things open up. To be honest with you, there's a part of me that wants to go Andrew Salas, but I'm worried that Andrew Salas at the end of the day, it might be a little flatter, kind of like how Ethan is, a little bit how Ethan is, where, Ethan's upside is taking, he's very mature. I think Salas might be the most mature of all of these guys. And I'm talking defensively, offensively, but where the upside is at the end of the day, I think some in question. Pena, though, if we're in the 30s here, so I'm playing as massive upside as I possibly can. I think I would go back-to-back Dix and Pena. Pena's hit tool, ranging into the 60 to 65 range, tons and tons of bat speed, potential power as the body grows because it's a super young kid, an advanced approach. There's actually some similarities in conversations about, you mentioned Jose Perdomo last year, where Jose Perdomo was kind of this advanced bat that had kind of plateaued. Pena, I think it has similarities in that advanced bat that doesn't have a plateau and has potential higher power upside. So I think it's just a really good range to bet on those as far as the upside of the international class. I'm not sure if there's another player out there that has the potential high ceiling upside of a guy like Pena, but he could absolutely fall in his face and falter. And I think that's something that's susceptible with this international class. But that's what I would have done. I would have gone JD, and then I'd Pena and then JD Dix if we kept going.
All right, Welsh, I'll throw it to you just because I know you got a time commitment thing, but just I'll recap your draft. You went Roki Sasaki at 1, Chase Burns at 8, Braden Montgomery at 9, Slade Caldwell at 16, Braylon Payne at 17, PJ Morlando at 24, Caminiti at 25, and then Elian Pena at 32. What do you think about the class in general? Is it a weak class, a really weak class, a better than people think class? And then the picks that you made, are there any picks that stand out as guys you really think you're going to have multiple shares of in your Dynasty FYPDs?
So I don't think I feel how you feel about it, because you've said it kind of multiple times. It sounds like you're really down on this class. I think in comparison to feelings on previous classes, I might echo that. But at the same time, where I don't think I think there's a huge argument around like, do you want the first pick? Do you have to sell out of the first pick? I legit, like, if someone gave me the I mean, Roki makes this different, but if I had like the third pick and someone was like, hey, I'll give you the 8th and the 11th pick for your third, I'd be like, let's roll, let's go. Just because that, you know, the difference between whoever you have at 3, JJ Wetherholt, Caglianone, Bazzana, or whatever, and then scrolling down and being able to get guys like Konnor Griffin or Braden Montgomery or Christian Moore, I don't think the gap is that big. Those are solid, but back to your original point, are there superstars in this class? I personally think Bazzana can be like a star. Like he could be really, really high up there. If things click with Jac, and I saw a decent amount of some of those changes, insanely stupid chase rate in college in the pro debut, and then it really started clicking and seeing him in the Arizona Fall League, I think there's a handful of guys that could be like, not just like good, but like, so I think Christian Moore could be like that. But I think the floor to those players is a lot scarier than it's been in years past. I would also, so I think like the depth in the first round feels good. The top end doesn't feel great. And I think there's a lot of sneaky names because I don't think people feel comfortable with this. So like, you know, of the last 5 years, maybe this would be like the second worst or something like that. So I don't feel super, super great, but I would value depth over high picks, trading down, being able to get like Braylon Payne, getting JD Dix, getting Ryan Waldschmidt. Like I would rather stack up a bunch. If you could get me 3 or 4 of those and I had to sacrifice getting Chase Burns, you know, at the 5th or 6th pick, and it was like, well, hey, you know, you could trade down and get Waldschmidt, Payne, and Josuar, I would do that because I would rather bet on those low end guys kind of battling it out. And then just on mine, I'm very happy. Kind of obviously I'm happy just because like these were some of my big major picks. I think Braden Montgomery might end up looking like a steal at the end of the day. I think Caminiti went too low, but he is just like a prep arm, I guess, in general. And PJ Morlando, we might look back on that and be like, damn, like that, you know, he's like a top 10 from this class. So those are, I think Morlando's going to be on a lot of my teams. And if Braden ever falls to the second round or have a late pick, he's going to be on all my teams.
Very well said, Welsh. Definitely appreciate you taking the time. I know you might have to hop off before we officially sign off, but thanks for joining us, Welsh. I'll throw it to you, Clegg. So you started off number 2, Travis Bazzana, number 7, Christian Moore, number 10, Konnor Griffin, 15, Griffin Burkholder of the Phillies, 18, Josuar Gonzalez of the Giants, Ryan Sloan at 23 of the Mariners, and Trey Yesavage at 26, Tyson Lewis at 31. You know, I know you said like after you took or after Welsh took Braden Montgomery, like you see star upside there, and you'd already made 2 picks at that point, Bazzana and Moore. So like, do I take that to mean you like really like this class?
I don't know if I would say I really like it. I think just experimenting where to float Montgomery, you know, I have no idea where he lands. Like I've got Montgomery ranked 8th, but again, I think I could argue him up to 5. I think the top 3 is clear. I think Travis Bazzana has an argument to be the number 1 prospect in all of baseball right now. Like that kind of skill set, I think is pretty special. I think he's better than what people thought Jackson Holiday was going to be when Holiday was number 1 prospect. Like that's the kind of player I look at with Travis Bazzana. JJ Wetherholt, yeah, I mean, he's incredible across the board. The reviews I've gotten this offseason from some people that have been working in his camp, and obviously like you take that with a grain of salt, but they've been incredible. I love Kurtz too. So that top 4 is really good. And then I think you have the upside shots after that. So pretty big tier of kind of upside plays. And yeah, I think the real value for me is in the prep bats because they're not valued all that highly outside of Griffin and Rainer. And so personally, like, yeah, I mean, I took Konnor Griffin in this draft, but in most FYPDs, unless I'm in that spot to take Griffin, I'm probably going to wait until the 20s and take some of the upside prep bats like I did with a Burkholder, you know, Braylon Payne, Tyson Lewis, those types. And so I don't hate the class. It's definitely not as talented as it was last year, and it certainly lacks the depth, and it doesn't have the superstars, you know, like we at least think there still could be out of that 2023 class. But I think overall it's fine. I'm just not like super enamored with it like I was 2023.
So do you actually like Bazzana more now than Holiday?
I think I've got him like right back to back in like in the Dynasty rankings. Like I think it's if Bazzana continues what he did and what I think he showed in his pro debut, then yeah, I think he could be better. I think the hit tool is better. I think the plate discipline's very similar. I think Holiday's always been a little bit overvalued from the hit tool standpoint. So that's I never had Holiday as like the top prospect in the game. So, I think that Bazzana he hits the ball harder. He makes better contact and similar plate approach. So yeah, I'm certainly buying the Bazzana hype.
I mean, he's also a year older.
Yeah.
And like Holiday was at high A and was better as a 19-year-old than Bazzana was as a 21-year-old.
Yeah, a small pro sample, long season, so I don't know. I certainly believe in the skill set of Bazzana.
So like quickly on like Bazzana, like my fear, I'm just so scared of like Pac-12 guys that were there for 3 years. Like I just don't think there's anything impressive about getting better in the Pac-12 year after year.
Yeah.
So like it's just like if I trusted the college, if I thought the college data meant more, I would maybe be higher on Bazzana, but I'm really just gun shy after so many Pac-12 bats have
been a lot of bust
exposed. It's just a bad conference, really.
Yeah, the pitching's definitely not there like you would face in the SEC or even the ACC. So I think that's a fair argument. I think that certainly you have to factor that in. But yeah, I mean Bazzana did perform against some good arms in some tournaments. Like he faced Hagen Smith and held his own left on left. So look at those things, and the pro data and his debut was solid. So yeah, I still think that you look at the profile, and I believe in that player and believe in the work ethic, and the way he thinks about baseball is just so different than everybody. So yeah, I mean obviously that's not an on the field trait, but yeah, I really like Bazzana.
And I love the Burkholder sell job you did at pick 15, the Phillies prep outfielder. I was struggling like how high to push him, but I dig it. Like I kind of wish I'd pushed him higher after hearing you talk about his tools. So love that pick. Did you have any other picks where it's just like, yeah, this is someone I definitely think is going to be on a lot of my teams?
Tyson Lewis, I think just in general is probably going to fall to that range where I got him, and I'll gladly scoop him there. It's just that similar mold to Burkholder where you got the power and you got the speed. And yeah, I buy into the swing changes that he's made over the last year to get to more consistent contact. So yeah, I think he'll be one that I draft pretty often in that range. Yeah, I think PJ Morlando is another one to look at where I think his value's definitely plummeted. It's been interesting to watch his roller coaster of value since his junior year, I guess, of high school, when he won the National Home Run Derby during the All-Star Week for high schoolers. And his value's been kind of all over the place, but I've seen a decent bit of Morlando here in South Carolina. So yeah, I think he's going to be a solid player, maybe not a superstar, but I think he'll be fine. So I think he'll be one that will be a decent value, like at the end of the day. So yeah, there's some fun names for sure.
Well, awesome stuff, Clegg. I really appreciate it. And Cross, you picked fourth, and you had JJ Wetherholt, Charlie Condon at the 4-5 turn, Hagen Smith, Bryce Rainer, 12 and 13, Seaver King, Theo Gillen, 2021, Vance Honeycutt, James Tibbs, 28-29. Thoughts on the class? Any favorite picks? Any players you think will be on multiple Dynasty teams after your first year player drafts conclude?
Yeah, so obviously I don't love it as much as the 2023 class, but I think it's an okay class. I'm kind of like middle of the road on this class. Isn't quite at the top end depth. Well, definitely does not have the top end depth that last year's did. Because I was just looking at my 2023 FYPD rankings, and like 1 through 7 was Langford, Yamamoto, Cruz, Jenkins, Cruz, Skeens, Jenkins, Shaw, and Clark. So all those guys are either already studs in the major leagues or in like my top 13, 14 overall prospects now. And then you have all these other names. You get the DeVries, the Emerson. So it was just a really loaded draft class. And this draft class does not have that level, but there's still a lot of good, top end talent here. I mean, I think I have for this year's FYPD, I think like the top 10 or in my top 50 overall in my prospect rankings, and I think like 16 or 17 overall. Maybe 13 or 14 actually in my top 100. So still a good class. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think I would, like, if I was in like that I don't know, 7 to 10 range in my FYPD. I think I might look to, if someone's really like, oh, I want to get up in the top 10, I think you could get a pretty good return and get some values. I don't think there's like a massive gap between, the back end of the top 10 and the back end of the top 20 or so. I think you could move back and get some solid value there. So that'd be something I might entertain if I had any picks in that one and someone's looking to trade up. In terms of my own picks here, I like Seaver. I think Seaver King, people have soured a little bit on Seaver King. I like him a lot, and Vance Honeycutt as well. I mean, those are guys where the rest of the skill set's really good, especially offensively, but hit tool concerns. I mean, that's the reason why. That's the reason why they get pushed down, and people have their concerns with them is the hit tool issues, and if they're making enough contact. But I kind of like where they both landed. Seaver King, big speed, all around blend from Honeycutt there, landing in Baltimore. I felt pretty good about. So I think I'm gonna have a lot of Honeycutt, a lot of Seaver King. I like those two picks a lot, and Konnor Griffin I think could end up being. I was gonna be absolutely ecstatic if he fell to me a couple more picks. I think he honestly might have the highest ceiling. If everything, like if we're talking like if everything clicks with like all these guys, I think if everything clicks for Griffin, I think that's might be the highest upside of any player in this draft class. I mean, obviously there's more risk than the college guys, Bazzana, Wetherholt, etc., Kurtz, but upside is so it's big there. So if you get Griffin like in the back end of the top 10, right where Clay got him at 10, I think you'd be absolutely ecstatic with that. But yeah, I like the class overall, but just don't love it.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'll quickly just say my pick. So I picked third. I had Nick Kurtz at 3, Jac Caglianone at 6, Cam Smith at 11, Carson Benge at 14, Ryan Waldschmidt at 19, Kellon Lindsey at 22, Jurrangelo Cijnte at 27, and Levi Sterling at 30. I do actually have 10 guys from this class just barely inside my top 50, but I think it's just I don't like the crop of prospects that much right now, and it's sort of I'd rather look behind the door of like I don't know exactly what this might be than guys where I'm just kind of like I know what this is. So that's why I do have that many draft prospects that high, but I don't have a single draft prospect inside my top 20. So that's sort of where I'm just kind of, I might just be missing the mark on Bazzana, Clegg, Kurtz, Caglianone, like those are my next two guys. And I don't really trust them enough to put them that high, but that's really kind of where I am down on this class. It's just I don't have anyone as like a building block type of prospect, but I might just be too low on some of these guys. But really appreciate you both joining me. I know you guys are just pumping out all kinds of podcasts and content, so really appreciate it. Before we go, why don't you let everyone know where they can follow you? I'll start with you, Cross.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was kind of really fun to do this again after we did it, several months ago, see where things change. I always appreciate it. And find me Eric Cross MLB on Twitter and Blue Sky as well if you're over there. Pumping out a ton of content over at RotoBaller, FTN. We're doing 2-3 podcasts a week over on the Tool Shed. We're actually going to record one right after this, our part 2 of our Dynasty Outfield talk, and got a lot of stuff on my Patreon already done. I'm going through team prospect rankings right now, and buys and sells, a lot of good fun stuff. This is a really fun time of year, and a lot of great content going out there. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. And Clegg, why don't you take us out and let people know where they can subscribe to your work?
All right. Well, first, thanks for having me. I always enjoy chatting with you and being on the RotoWire pod. So always a privilege. But yeah, find me on Twitter at Chris Clegg, CLEGG, MILB, and then the dynastydugout.com, RotoBaller, and Toolshed Pod.
Awesome, guys. Well, keep up the great work. Definitely check out what Eric and Chris are doing. And for those who missed it, my top 400 update dropped today. So check that out. Subscribe to RotoWire. And thanks for listening, everyone.